Welcome to another leadership lesson number 5. And I'm very excited today because I got Hardy Smith. He is the author of Amazon's bestseller, Stop the Non-Profit Blame Game. And Hardy, you've been up here with me at Lake Norman talking about nonprofits. But for those of you who may not know you, and I don't know who that could possibly be, past national vice president for the United States Junior Chamber of Commerce, you've been involved with NASCAR. You are on the board of the Institute for Organizational Management for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And again, recently written the Stop the Blame Game. And I read that in one weekend, and it was fantastic. So thank you very much for being on here today. Hardy, when an organization is struggling with a problem for problem board members, what's the first key steps they should do as a board chair or president to address the situation effectively?
I would say, and I'm trying to get better at this, myself, as we go along, we get a little smarter. I'm better at it now than maybe I was in those JC days. But I would urge you to the leader should not be quick to judgment.
Right.
Don't jump quickly to so quick to judgment. Take time to have a conversation to find out what may be going on in that other individual's life that's causing them to just be disagreeable or just be ornery or just not being very pleasant to deal with. There could very well be something that's going on personally or in their business life, especially now, that could be affecting their whole attitude and their lack of positivity. So that would be my first step.
I'm the executive of a chamber of commerce, so I have spent the last 33 years managing a board. Again, I work for the board of directors, but I've chaired several boards, been president of the Jaycees, and many of our boards face the challenges of recruiting the right people. What specific traits or qualifications organizations look for when they're trying to attract effective board members?
That is a very, very good question. And I can tell you're coming from a place of being very experienced in these
Yeah.
matters, and you probably have a better answer than I'll share. But here's what I would share with our audience, Bill, and thank you for that question. The Every organization, I believe, is unique. Every organization is different. So you could be a group of a chamber of commerce. You could be the local chapter of the South Carolina Gamecock Boosters, but they're all volunteer board members, but it's all unique. So what's the first question to ask is, what is the purpose of the organization?
That's right.
What's
That's
the
right.
mission of the organization? And what are the expectations of the board members? And the board member that you were looking for maybe 5 years ago could be very much different because things change, very much different than the board member you really need to look for 5 years later, now, and 5 years from now.
Right.
So 10 years is a big swing there. It's huge. So what skills, what talents, what experiences are you looking for? And those answers are going to be unique to your organization. The thing that's going to be the common thing is, what do you consider, not who, but what do you consider a best fit? How would you describe your best board member? And it's not Bill or Hardy, it's what would you describe? Then once you have these attributes, you start. I love sports and I like recruiting. Maybe that's a JC thing, but you start putting on your board, who are your potential board members on your whiteboard, potential board members, Bill, who meet those attributes that you're looking for. It's that simple. Unfortunately, in the world of nonprofits and the world of chambers of commerce and associations, quite often we don't spend the time in being intentional about who it is we're recruiting and what we're recruiting.
You're exactly right in setting those clear expectations for board members. I remember when we were recruiting JCs, and this has been 40 years ago. Sometimes we made the mistake of somebody saying, "Oh, I'm very, very busy." And you go like, "Oh, well, you know what? You don't have to come to the meetings and you don't have to come to the projects." And then guess what? They lived up to those expectations. They
They
didn't come to
certainly
the
do.
meetings and they didn't come to the projects. And then we got that member that we asked for. So you've
That's
got to
exactly
set those
right.
clear expectations.
You're exactly right. And you can have, no expectations or low
Right.
expectations or expectations.
Yeah.
So what's your choice? You want high expectations or none or low? And if you expect nothing, that's pretty much what you're going to get.
Hardy, what are some of the most common mistakes a board chair or association executives like myself make when they're trying to manage high performance boards, and how can they avoid them?
Well, number one, what's your definition of high performance board?
That's good.
What I would my definition of a high performance board when I'm speaking or when I'm writing or when I'm leading a training session, I'm an advocate for utilizing your board as a high value asset. So just remember this. This is a basic. Um, your board members are volunteers. Probably, especially if at the local level, probably your board members are five-star blue chip prospects. And they are the busiest people. They're the most involved people. They're the most influential people in your community, right? That's like a common thread. That's who we all want. Well, if they say yes to serving on your board, they're not there to waste their time. They want to know they're making a difference. They want to know they're making an impact. And if they're not, it's just not going to be good. You're not going to see. They're going to become disengaged very quickly. So if it's a high value asset board or a high performing board, are you using them in that way? And one of the tips that I would share is utilize your planning process as an engagement tool. And oh,
Right.
wait, let's walk that back. Make sure you benefit from good planning to start out with, because way too many nonprofits just don't. And that's a whole nother topic for a next time, Bill. Um, but so if you have the benefit of a good plan, your board members have been involved in the development of the plan as an engagement opportunity. Well, as my good friend, the Chancellor of Troy University in Alabama, Dr. Jack Hawkins, always uh, told me, Hardy, if they help bake the cake, they own the cake, right?
Yeah.
So, and Dr. Hawkins was so right. And so, in that way, if you benefit from a good plan, these high performance individuals, when they're not in your boardroom, they have direction and they have goals and they have aspirations and there's structure and there's purpose. What happens if you don't have all of that? That's when they start drifting. And that's when you start having the whole. So to answer your question, I've kind of deviated from your question, but it's like, well, why? Why do you think that is a problem? Why is it a problem that your high performing board has become some kind of an issue? And there are reasons why. And some of those I just shared with you.
Yeah. You and I, we got involved in the JCs 40 years ago
Yeah.
and been involved with the chambers of commerce. And we've been in those board meetings when they just sort of veered off course. What strategies do you recommend for board chairs and executives to keep them productive and focused?
Well, number one is that the board chair should be an experienced facilitator.
Right.
And to walk that back, don't assume that your next board chair is going to be an experienced facilitator. And just because they're the president of the biggest bank in town, or they sell more cars than anybody in town, they're the leading retailer, or they're the leading manufacturer, or they've been the president of 10 other boards. That doesn't necessarily mean they're good at facilitating conversation among, now listen to this, not only volunteers, but their peers.
Mm,
You have to remember, in a local organization, they're all pals, they're all buddies. So I'm the board chair, and you just kind of keep going on and keep. Well, I'm not going to ask you to stop talking because you might not invite me to that next Carolina football game. Well, see, so I'm going to just but I'm hurting the environment of the meeting. So number one, the board chair has got to be a good facilitator, and if you are the president of the chamber, you're the president of the nonprofit, the executive director of an association, you've got to not assume that skill is there. If they don't have it, make sure they get it. Second point to answer this very good question is make sure your meetings have structure and purpose.
that's right.
If you're just gathering and your board members have a sense of, well, we're just here and we're just going to talk. There's no intentionality around the meeting. Again, you're going to get what you ask for. And so have purpose, have timelines, make sure everyone is having a chance to participate in the conversation. And at the end of the day, board members know they feel like something was accomplished. So you've got to make meetings matter. And
Right.
that way you tend to avoid the drifting.
I'm the executive of the Chamber of Commerce, and I've chaired whether it's Jaycees or Kiwanis, been on boards of Habitat and United Way. And occasionally you get somebody who is a well-intentioned board meeting member and they have such a strong personality, they just dominate the discussions. How do you suggest handling that?
Well, it's again, it's up to the board chair, not
Mhm.
that staff professional. The board chair has got to do it. And number one is, and you don't embarrass anybody, right? But again, Bill, you've made several great points. Now Hardy here hasn't really said much. Let's give him a chance. Let's give him a chance to weigh in on this.
That's
And Bill,
right.
thank you so very much. Now, if Bill is a problem, and like every single meeting is a problem, um, board chair needs to have a conversation. And again, one on one, not in the meeting itself. Now, that is not an easy thing to do, especially in a local community. It's just, Bill, you're really kind of being a jerk here in the meetings, and it's just not what we want. That leader has really got to have some juice to be able to do that. So I understand there's a reality here. But the most positive thing, again, is to facilitate in the facilitation skills I mentioned earlier. Just acknowledge, Bill, thank you for your contributions, and let's give someone else a chance to talk. You can also set time limits.
Mhm.
Um, okay, it's we're nearing the end of the time allotted for this item on the agenda. Does anyone else have something to add?
I've been doing this for 33 years at the Chamber of Commerce, and you and you're on the board of the United States Chamber of Commerce. But, you hear the stories of the board chair from hell, the one that comes in and wants to micromanage everything. But you also see tension sometimes either between the board chair and the exec or board members themselves. How do you manage that?
Well, number one, if there's an issue between the executive, the staff professional, and the board chair or a board member, um, you've got to put a volunteer in between you and the board chair or the board person,
Mhm.
because you're not, as a staff professional, you will not win that battle.
No,
It just doesn't work that way.
right.
So, is there a past chair that might intercede?
Mhm.
Is there a chair-elect that might be able to intercede? Is there someone else on the board whom that difficult board chair really respects and a close friend of them? But it is a very difficult situation. I do see this, uh, unfortunately, quite often, and it's not unique. But those things do come up, and they do have to be handled. Um, and hopefully, it doesn't, finally get to like so far out of control that somebody's got to go.
Hardy, let's step back and let's just say it's a civic club, or instead of a chamber of commerce, or maybe even an HOA, and
Ooh,
you've got tensions on the board or the HOA. How do
right.
you handle that?
Well, it's in sports a lot of times, um, what happens if a team just isn't, the season starts, high expectations, all of a sudden a game or two in, and those high expectations are not being fulfilled, and you hear about a players only meeting,
Mm,
and the players kind of resolve things. There are some things, the mission, focus on the mission. So when all the dysfunctionality is happening, who's winning and who's losing?
hmm.
It's the people who the mission is supposed to be serving. That's who the losers are.
Right.
And, so you've got to depend on, if you've got a few board members that are being upset, they're just disgruntled for whatever the reason is, you've really got to have that board to step up and really kind of run that players only meeting in that locker room. And it's because you can't, these are adults, right? You can't tell a bunch of adults, well, silly adult, you're just being misbehaving. You don't get to go out to recess, or you don't get a snack period, or go stand in the corner. That doesn't work. So, but these are adults. These are adults.
Hardy, in the current climate that we have today, what new challenges are you seeing in board management that might have been different from, say, 10 or 20 years ago?
That's a really good question, and there's a lot of research uh, that goes into that very question. And I want to credit you, Bill, because you're the one that tipped me off to Dr. Robert Putnam's book,
Mhm.
Bowling Alone. So when I say a lot of research, there's a lot of data that goes into this. So what's happening now? And this is something, I'm not going to get into the whole Dr. Putnam book, but what's happening now is that, and this is a trend that's been going on since the 1960s, is that volunteerism is not what it used to be.
That's right.
People don't get engaged. And now stick with me, folks, because I'm going to tell you one thing, and then I'm going to shift. I'm going to do 180 on it. So, but getting engaged is not what it used to be. And there are a lot of reasons for that, but that's just true. So from 20 years ago to now, what's different? And all of these situations affect our discretionary time. So 20 years ago, well, and there's always issues. There's always, unfortunately, there's always economic downturn. There is always, thank goodness we don't have pandemics on a regular basis, but what we've just gone through is not the first time. It won't be the last time. There's always military conflict of one type or of another. There has always been civil unrest, and we were founded on civil unrest in this country. So all these things keep swirling and creating an environment of change and uncertainty and disruption. So, and it's manifesting, and it seems to be accelerating. So all of those things, if you're in a business right now and you're dealing with economic uncertainty, then are you wanting to stay in that business and hunker down, or do you have time? Do you think extra time to go volunteer and sit on a volunteer board? It makes it extremely different. Another couple of quick things, Bill, is the generational shift that's happening in our country. You know that, and this has been going on for several years now, but it's accelerating. Um, so that you realize we're only 2 or 3 years away before Gen Z and ballpark and ages, that's about a 17, 18-year-old to about a 25-year-old ballpark. Um, we're only 2 or 3 years away before Gen Z is the dominant age demographic in this country. Well, that translates into being the dominant volunteer group, the dominant people on your board. So I'll guarantee you a 20, 25-year-old today thinks much differently than a 45-year-old, a 55-year-old, or a 65-year-old who's on your board right now. So
Mhm.
all of those, their expectations are different. Next gen will be involved. They will get engaged in the community. That's where I said, hang on, because I'm going to pull a 180 on you. So that's a false narrative that people don't get involved anymore. That's not true. They just do it differently. And organizations have to shift. You can have the same mission, but how you accomplish the mission may very well have to change. And that's those are big trends that are affecting and creating reasons why the board and its activities and engagement challenges are different.
Hardy, you and I both got our start with the Jaycees. And for people who may be watching this video and don't really know what the Jaycees are, Young People's Organization 21 to 39. And we're known for our leadership development, creating leadership skills and nurturing those skills in young people. I want to ask you, you were a local president, you were the state president of Alabama, you were a national vice president with the United States Junior Chamber of Commerce. How did that experience shape your approach to leadership and working with boards today?
Bill, I got to tell you, I'm just smiling because you're bringing back memories, and I appreciate you for doing that, creating those emotional and mental triggers. I'm getting goosebumps, really. Um, at the time, and remember the JC organization, personal development and leadership training through community service.
That's right.
It was, I don't want to say a playground. It was a place to play, but not a playground. It was a place to learn. It was a place to experiment, experiment in human interaction and leadership opportunities, learning how to plan a project, budget a project, and learning all of those things and interact with other individuals, motivate other individuals, ask other individuals to take on a task and follow up and utilize time management skills, all of those things. And when the JCs were created, the opportunity for young men in America, unless you went into the military, this type of training did not exist
That's right.
because you weren't allowed at that time. You weren't allowed to be in the Chamber of Commerce. That's why it was the Junior Chamber of Commerce. Uh, you weren't allowed to join a civic club like the Kiwanis, the Lions, or the Rotary at the time, and there's so many other great organizations because they had an age. They didn't take those young people.
That's right.
And so you just didn't have this. So this was that opportunity. And all the great experiences that we had in the learning and experimenting, let me not forget, for people like me, it was a chance to have a little grace being given to me and afforded to me, maybe and not be successful on time, maybe just fail, just outright mess things up. But it was okay. I learned, and the leaders, the chapters, the state, the United States Jaycees, okay, all right. Well, if you learn something, we've served our purpose. So, it was just a tremendous opportunity. And has it impacted where I am today? Absolutely. Read my book and see how many references that you'll see attributed to the whole JC experience. It was incredible.
I used to say in front of JC's, ours is the only organization that you can go out there and run a project and lose money, and we'll give you a plaque.
We'll give you a member of the month. Absolutely.
Staying on that for a second, because again, that's where we got our start. Is there one defining leadership moment from your JC days, maybe as a state president of the Alabama Jaycees or a national vice president traveling across the country that you now share with your clients?
I would say it's almost become yes. The answer is yes. It's in my playbook of signature stories. Um, and you'll probably see this individual showing up right now if you're an SEC football fan because the Southeastern Conference is doing a whole lot of promotion to celebrate its history. But we had a program when I was individual at the time, individual development vice president. So we had all the personal development programs. I know you remember. One of my programs as vice president was physical fitness. Well, I had a young JC who was a school teacher, and he was in the Roebuck Center Point JCs outside of Birmingham. His name was Ken James, and big monster of a guy. Played football at Alabama for Bear Bryant, defensive lineman, incredible hulk of a man. And I said, well, who better to be my physical fitness chairman than Ken James? Well, Ken James he ran all over the state of Alabama. And if he said you need to do push-ups, I guarantee you were going to do push-ups, you were going to eat right, and whatever it was Ken James was telling. And so he was program manager of the month every single month at every single conference. And at the end of the year, and you know how these award ceremonies go, Bill. I know you've been in so many of them. I'm program manager of the year for the individual development team, Ken James. And Ken James, and this is a monster of a man, and I'm this little guy, you know. So he comes running up to the front. His little small wife, Deborah, is right there, and Ken James is just crying. And I
Yeah.
said, "Oh my gosh! Well, have I embarrassed him? Did I hurt his feelings? I mean, what did I do wrong?" And Deborah was just they were crying together, and I said, "Deborah, what did I do? I've upset him." She said, "No, Hardy, you don't understand. What the JCs did for my husband, Ken, was something that he never got from playing from the legendary Bear Bryant.
Right.
He was never shown appreciation. He was never given a thank you. JC's thanked him. JC's appreciated him. Now, he didn't do everything that he did. He didn't do it because of that, but he was getting that. I didn't know I was at the time. I didn't have an ulterior motive. I was just thanking him and Ken, you're awesome. And here's another plaque. Well, that's the thing the lesson here that I learned is people get involved in volunteer activities for their reasons.
Right.
And you need to, whether you're in working with volunteers in nonprofit organizations or in for profit, whoever you're working with, Bill, you need to take time to know their why. What is it that's important to them personally? And it may not be your mission. It may not be the cause. That's just what they happen to sign up for. But you need to understand the why. And that's the biggest lesson uh, that I came away from. And that was incredible.
I
Very
love
powerful.
that. Know the why. Know the why. Last question of you. If you could go back and talk to a young 25-year-old Hardy Smith, what advice would you give him?
Uh, Pay attention, slow down, slow down, Hardy, slow down. Uh, and think ahead. Don't just go hell bent for leather and try to have some sense of direction. Uh, Continue to ask questions. Continue to ask for help. Always ask for help. And know that there are people and you don't have to do everything yourself. And then the last one is if you do everything yourself, you're probably not training the people who are going to be coming behind you, and you're setting them up for failure, not success.
Hardy, you've written Stop the Nonprofit Board Blame Game. People can find that at hardysmith.com. You can order it on Amazon. Share just a little bit about that book because, again, I read that. I read it probably in 2 days. If you serve on any nonprofit board, any HOA, any church organization, any civic club, whether you're leading it or just sitting on the board, that is a must read. But share a little bit about that book. How did it come to be?
Well, Bill, it's I found out early on that one of the top pain points in the world of nonprofits, chambers, and associations is the angst and the frustration around board members not meeting expectations.
That's right.
And the question is, why don't board members do what they're supposed to do? And the more I kept hearing that, and it ate me up, Bill. And I said, I gotta get an answer to this question, and because I'm not seeing an answer. I'm not seeing an answer. So I created a very, at the time, very crude survey. I reached out to all of my JC pals all over the country, everyone else that I could think of that were volunteer board members, not professional staff. And I asked them the question, why is it that good board members don't do what they're supposed to do? What turns good board members off? And they gave me these nuggets, Bill, and it's all in the book, and it was incredible. So the book is what's different about the book among all the books that are available about nonprofit boards and governance, Bill. What's different about this one, it's based on the board member perspective. So the board members shared their perspectives on why boards don't work. And one of the keys is they're not having a fulfilled, happy board experience. So that means while the nonprofit professional is pointing the finger at the board member for not performing as expected, the board member's pointing the finger right back saying, I'm not getting what I want out of this and it's your fault. And so I knew that's where the blame game came from. And
Right.
then obviously, right? And then not only the book didn't need to point out that there's a problem of dysfunctional boards. We all got that. But what they needed was the board member perspective to understand why the problems existed. And then I offer the solutions on how to fix those problems.
I've been doing this for 33 years, and if the chamber board that I'm serving on is not effective, it's my fault because I don't pick my bosses. The nominating committee does that, but I do recommend about 8 out of every 10 board members that comes on board. If they don't live up to those expectations, it's my fault. hardysmith.com. The book again is Stop the Nonprofit Board Blame Game on Amazon. Hardy, you are a wealth of information. I'm looking forward to getting you back up here in Lake Norman and hosting you on Town Talk.
Sounds great, Bill. Thank you so very much. And I do appreciate you continuing to advocate for the message of the JCs, and what a fantastic experience in hundreds of thousands and maybe a few million individuals today are having an impact thanks to that experience.
Absolutely. Hardy, have a great weekend, sir.
Thank you very much.